Well, Charlie, great to see you again. It's not the first time you've been on the Lightweight Boxing Show, but it's a welcome return, and it's a massive weekend ahead and everything else. But firstly, how are things with yourself? I know that you do a bit of work with this fella and with Joe Gallagher up in Bolton, obviously. So what's the crack with you at the minute?
Everything's going smoothly. We're working on things behind the scene. Joe's now not only my coach, but my manager as well. So I'm leaving it all up to him. He's making plans and trying to push for my next fights and stuff. But we're hoping to be out in October. Fingers crossed everything goes smoothly, and we can be. But yeah, see Ant all the time, always on the pads. Getting sick of him, seeing his face. But it's good. It's good to have Ant in the gym, working beside him, because very experienced lad, been through massive fights. The gym's booming. Everyone in the gym's flying, and I'm just like chomping on the bit now to get my own fight, get some focus and really push in. I've been 100% dedicated out of camp. Like I fought in December just gone, and I've been back in camp and developing, and everything's going smoothly and right in the gym, and I'm going from levels to levels, and I've really gelled with Joe. So when the fights start rolling in, I think this time round, I think I'm going to shock a lot of people. I've moved up a weight, I've actually grown into a bantamweight, and I'm punching a lot harder. My experience is coming into play. Getting my man strength now. I'm 29, so I'm getting on a bit. So I'm coming to the peak years of my career. So I'm really looking forward to this next stage. And we've had a bit of ups and downs along the way with trying to get things sorted and stuff. But the future's going to be bright, and when the time comes, I'm going to be ready. So looking forward to it.
Charles, ex-GB teammate and roommate, Anthony Joshua, fights on Saturday in the biggest fight of his career, without a doubt. What can you tell us about your time? Sort of your time, Anthony Joshua. So that would have been the time where it was the real progression from raw novice towards being an Olympic champion. What did you see in Big AJ that you thought that could make him special one day?
He was always a student to the game. Like we shared rooms together for years. It was mad. It was a running joke, little and large. I was the lightest weight and he was the heaviest weight. And we were both tipped to go on to do big things at the Olympics. I didn't end up qualifying. He went on and won the gold medal. But we were both tipped to be big things, and we did go both on to win world titles. But in the early days, he was always a very much student to the game. Very, very focused. He knew what he wanted. He knew what he was capable of. He knew his attributes and things like that. He listened, he learned, and he would always go the extra mile. He'd always put in extra. Like even when we was up the GB team, say Monday to Thursday, then we'd go home at the weekend. And then he was actually, at the time I was boxing for the Lynn ABC, and one of my coaches, Gary Howes, was a very good amateur coach, and he would come down from the GB side on Friday and Saturday and come do some sessions with him and to develop and learn. And he was always like asking questions, wanting to learn, and
bit of a sponge like that.
Yeah, proper sponge. And like he was the biggest guy in the room, but he was the most down to earth, humble guy in the room. Like we'd sit there, crack jokes about like Dynamo the Magician when he was coming on, and we'd sit there, watch The Secret. Even I think we used to sit there when we was in France and watch, is it Made in Chelsea or something?
Oh, now you're talking, that's all Crolla's kind of getting now, isn't it? Yeah. Anything like that.
Training camps are mad, isn't it? You just like spend so much time with you chilling together, you have crack jokes all the time, and we got on very well, and obviously he's gone on to big things, and his life's gone on a crazy whirlwind roller coaster. But he is in the biggest fight of his career to date. It seems like everyone's like that now. When he got beat from Ruiz, it was do or die. If he gets beat again, he's done, which I think is a bit unfair. It's the same in this boxing world. Everyone thinks you just got to keep winning, and the British public was so behind him at first, and now as people have kind of like dwindled off and want to see him get beat, I'm not sure why. Maybe because envious jealousy of such a successful man. But he's in his biggest fight now. Biggest fight to date.
I think that's one of the crazy things about weekend. It's come out and it's been all over social media. You know, there's a few people who said Alexander Usyk loses on Saturday, he retire. And listen, he might do. He's earned a ridiculous amount of money. Joshua. He's earned a ridiculous amount of money. He's been a two-time world champion, but all in all, he's fighting one of the pound for pound very best. Do you know what I mean? There's no one who wouldn't have Usyk in probably the top 3 or 4.
Yeah, but also as well, and I think that this is kind of a little bit forgotten. Usyk's had nearly 400 fights, amateur and pro. Josh didn't start boxing until he was 18, 19, whatever. I mean, so it's mad.
Absurd,
I say this all the time. People don't. For me, what's more amazing than anything he's done as a professional, it was a bit sort of hardcore sort of boxing. Followers who know, but he went from winning a national novice title under 10 bouts. He beat a lad from my amateur club, Big John Najabe. He won 6-3. Yeah, he won 6-3. Within 18 months, he was fighting in. Did he get to the world final?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
he got silver in the worlds, didn't he?
Yeah.
That's what that for me. That is the most. I know the super heavyweights, but like Charlie just said, then he was a sponge. Like he'd be constant looking to improve, and the improvement from beating a lad from Argentina in a national under 10 novice final to an Olympic silver, a world silver medal, and then obviously the journey after it. It's mental. You cannot get your head around it.
I think he only had about under. I would say around about 30, but definitely under 40 amateur fights.
Yeah.
And he was gold medalist, Olympic gold medalist, so
world silver medalist.
He's had so much pressure on him.
Yeah.
So like, no wonder nowadays, like you can see sometimes it's getting to him. You can see it in his face.
Been
you can
non-stop.
see non-stop. It's constant. There's only so much pressure someone can take. But from that young age, he's just been constantly moving forward, and really learning on the job in front of millions and millions of people, the world.
Not just that, he's gone from fighting in the leisure centres, in novice championships, to becoming one of the very most recognisable faces in sport. And I'm talking all across sport. You forget how big he's huge. Like, obviously, the crowds that he's had at Wembley, at Tottenham and so on, but Cardiff a few times.
He's changed British boxing in a sense.
Yeah, he has.
If it weren't for him, it is
right.
It is right what some people are saying. If it weren't for AJ, British boxing wouldn't be the same.
Imagine
the cards
the
weren't
pressure.
as big as they were.
No, and the expectation that was on his shoulders was
but for
unreal.
him to be written off like he is now, it's just so crazy. But I'm hoping and praying that he can come through and pull through again, because at the end of the day, look, I'm a British fighter. All the British fighters need to get behind AJ, because if it ain't for him, he's mainstream boxing. Now Tyson Fury's just retired, whether that's true or not. Like, we need big superstars to carry on this legacy for British boxing, these big shows, the audience, the money, the pay-per-view and everything. So fingers crossed he can pull it out the bag, and I hope he does.
We'll have to get your prediction a bit later on, obviously, of the fight. But in terms of Joshua the man, because again, we know all about his career, we've watched it all, it's all played out in front of us, but you've known him obviously before anybody knew him whatsoever. How has he changed as a fella now from the kid that you met?
I really don't see he's changed, because although we ain't close like we used to be, obviously life takes you different paths, ways, and you've got to focus on your career and stuff. There's been odd occasions, especially like when I was world champion and he had just been beat off Ruiz.
Yes.
He rang me up, he knew I was in Sheffield. I went down there, he needed one of them irons so I took him one down, had a little chat, and he was like giving me props, like, how's your mindset so strong, this, that and the other. At the time I was flying, I was like, I was untouchable, and I was having a conversation with him, and I was like, bloody hell, I was like, why are you asking me? Like, you're flying, mate, like, you've had a loss, but you're thinking. So it shows he's got that human side to him still. And then we've been out in Marbella, we've linked up over there when we both hadn't had fights. We've gone out and had a little party and had a laugh, do you know what I mean? And it felt like we sat there talking for hours, and it's like the same Joshua that I was chilling with all them years back. So he hasn't changed. It's just, I think people look at him like, he's changed, he's got big time, because people don't understand in life that sometimes someone has to outgrow everything to get to where they need to be. It doesn't mean they're leaving you behind, but when I see him, same old Joshua, and it's nice to see.
British title, and he was all over the place. He was a big superstar then. When he was giving
$1
the big one,
innit?
$1 million. He's all around Manchester giving it the big one.
I was out the bunk beds at my mum and dad's, threw our will into the box room, got a double bed. He's telling you.
But Josh then is kind of the same guy, regardless of all the absolute madness that he's kind of grown up in, if you like, now.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I think one of the interesting things about all this is that the other fella, because we know about the pressure Josh is under, and we know about what he's got to deal with and the demons from the first fight and everything else. But since that first fight at the Tottenham Stadium, a war has broken out, as we all know, and he's been on the front line or whatever he's been doing in Ukraine, and he's taken himself away with the blessing of his people and all. I mean, is that a plus or a minus for his mentality that he's got the whole country now that he's got to fight for?
I think it can work both ways, like, because pressure is real. If he's putting that sort of pressure on himself, and like it's like a mindset of I have to do this, I have to win, I have to do this for him, it can work in a negative effect. But then if he's going in it with the mindset is I've got my nation behind me, and it can push you and drive you to a whole new level. And what Usyk has been in the war, been seeing, been thinking is nothing on what he's going into now. I don't want to sound that derogative because of
no, but it's like, how can you compare it?
And getting killed, like you could get killed any day, or you could get knocked out. Well, I'd rather get knocked out than killed. So I
always remember Peter Fury saying it once, and I was in an interview, and he says it's a boxing fight. I know Peter's like he's got his way words, and it's straight down the middle, isn't it? And what's the worst that can happen? You lose to another man, you get knocked out. You're talking about a man who was on the front line, who was. So I'm not saying he was dodging bullets or anything like that, but there was every chance that his life,
just being in the country, you were in trouble, weren't you?
Your life's at high risk.
But I suppose in a way that's what Joshua's got to remember as well. That it's just a fight. And to try and just get in there and have a fight. And again, a lot's been made about him trying to find the dog in him again, you know, and being that kind of slightly raw fighter again, like he was with Dillian Whyte, and just when he gets rocked, get in there. And the Klitschko fight.
I exactly get where you're coming from and know what you're saying. But I do think, like, just speaking from previous experience, like what happened to me with the Martinez thing, it's not so much of, it's just a boxing match. Because you've sacrificed your whole life for something. You put in all the work, and when you get out there, because it hasn't gone the way you expected or wanted, you're hard on yourself. You beat yourself up mentally. You torture yourself because, like, you're like, nah, I'm better than that. I should have done better than that. And then it's like a pressure, not from everyone else sometimes, but a pressure on yourself saying, I can't lose. I can't. This can't happen again. This can't happen again. And that's what can make someone go a bit insane with it all, and change their personality, confidence, everything. Such a mental game, boxing.
And that fight, I mean, that was a crazy night with the Martinez fight. No contest in the end. Obviously, it hit you when you're on the deck and everything else. And you've had a tough time since then, really, haven't you? It's been kind of, you've not had the fights you needed to have. You know, you've been inactive. But that night was madness. And I mean, so that's had a massive impact on you that night.
Oh, massive impact on me that night. Reality is, when I look back, and I haven't said this to this day, I was suffering severe mental health issues. I shouldn't have fought that night. Making them light weights made me fall into a deep, dark depression. I was 8 stone. Like, I walk around at 9 stone.
That's crazy to look at,
like,
now, isn't it?
Like 8 stone, and I was messed around in camp and everything with fight dates and stuff, and then I got chucked to me last minute. But I was in training camp and I was training for that fight, and I was giving it everything, and my head was so focused. Then the fight fell apart and I weren't fighting, so it was all up in the air. I went away on holiday to try to get away from it all. I'm telling you now, my mental health, I went on my own. I just split up with one of my ex-misses, went on my own. My head was all over the place from that relationship, and I was out for 10 days, drinking all day, all night. I couldn't handle the pressure. In my head, I was like, this is the last time I'm going to be world champion, so I'm just going to enjoy it. My head fell off my shoulders. I was getting mad thoughts, suicidal thoughts, just couldn't cope with it. And I got back, and then I went into a 5-week training camp to make a weight that I couldn't make anyway. So I just killed myself and I went in there 2 weeks before my fight, and I should have pulled out then, because I couldn't even make my last check weight. I had to get I had to cheat the scales. And that was still £3 over. And when you rehydrate fuel and go back up a weight, and then you got to bring it all down again the following week for the weigh-in. I had to do 5 kilograms overnight. I was nearly dead.
That's such a lightweight as well.
I can't even remember the interview I had on Sky. If I go back and look at the weigh-in, my eyes are sunken in my head. My it's completely. I look ill, very ill. I should never have fought. But you live and you learn. You know, never do that again. Would never put my body through that situation, and I would never fight with a mental health problem. It took me a while to get over that, and off the back of that, it was even worse for a while. And slowly, you get the right people around you, support and talk to people, and it comes back. But it was a very tough journey, and it still sits deep inside of me, and it kills me because I know deep down on my mother's life, I could beat Martinez on my day. When I met, like, if it was bantamweight now, and he moved up, let's get it on, because it's what legacy fights are about, you know. The controversy was completely taken out of my hand back in the day, like, and it brought me hate. Everyone was calling me a fake champion. Everyone was laughing at me. Everyone this and that. That's why I say about AJ, because the pressure and what everything goes on, it f's your head up.
You can only imagine that. Do you know what he does? Like the scale of it. Like obviously with Charlie's fight, I was working that night, and people forget. It was blatantly. It was seconds and seconds. Like there was no other choice. He had to be however the fight would have gone.
But when you've been struggling already going into that, I mean, that's a crazy turn of events.
I was going into that like it was the death penalty. That's where my head was at. I shouldn't have fought.
So what needs to be done about stuff like that?
Walk into the ring, it sounds deep, but you supposed to walk into the ring like never been on death row. I imagine walking down death row.
It felt like death row, and it's crazy to understand. But from a perspective of, I've trained my whole life to be a world champion. I've dedicated everything. There was times like when I got beat off Casemiro that I never thought that maybe I would become a world champion off the back of that. But then I turned it around and I become world champion. And when you get to that thing, and even though I'm struggling for weight, I was a weight above, and then I moved back down to fight to get the world title, and then keep going like up down. It just fried my body. And when you are world champion, you do not want to. For pride and ego reasons, I was getting my career biggest payday, and you should never let money rule you, and I would never let it rule me again. Career biggest payday. It was on one of the biggest cards. I had pressure from my promoter Eddie Hearn at the time for the fight, and I just couldn't vacate it because I thought to myself, if I vacate it, I'm going to look like a shit house. I'd rather go in there and get ironed out and go out on my shield than that. Now I've learned from that, and I would never do that again. But
that was Lomachenko Campbell, wasn't it? So the undercard of that, your old pal. We love mentioning Lomachenko every week at the end of the minute, don't we?
What a guy.
but in terms of yourself, I mean, when you talk about those dark days, I mean, it's important because we've heard a lot, obviously, about mental health and fighters and everything else, and what safety nets need to be there for fighters. I mean, what would you want to see now? I mean, what warning signs would you look or try and help other fighters if they're going to go into a similar situation?
I think you have to be real with yourself. From a young age, I've been in boxing. My dad was very supportive in my boxing, but he was too much. And whenever I felt a certain way, he was like, "No, you're right. You don't cry. Man up." So I've always had that mentality. Then I was being on the GB squad, even if you'd be around other guys pushing for things. Even if you felt injured, you would just "Nah, I'm sparring today. I'm not sparring because it looks like I'm the shit house." And that's how men, especially men, actually kind of think, and it's wrong. You should really own your feelings, own your emotions, and when you don't feel right, talk up. Look at Adrian Broner. Look, he's just done it. Pulled out of a fight, and fair play to him, because at the end of the day, every time you get into that ring, every time you battle through all this, it takes a part of your soul, yourself away, and it affects you for much longer than you can imagine. And it took me over a year to get over it, and even then, after the Martinez fight, my next fight a year later, when I moved up 2 weights, I had a massive panic attack in the ring. Just before I walked out the ring, and I had to calm my nerves and went through. So I've gone through all this torture and pain, and it took me a while to really work it out. I had to speak to a sports psychiatrist to work it out. Luckily I had my wife around me, and I was just real. And it's time for men, especially everyone, to just own up to how you feel at the time. And if you can't do it, say you can't do it. You're not a superhuman, you know what I mean? But in the world of boxing, you try to tell everyone around that, "No, I'm all right, I'm fine. But the reality is, we're all human beings, you know, and it's not a sane thing that we're doing, putting our emotions, health, everything on the line constantly, and that's why the pressure gets too much. That's why I believe I look at AJ and don't really see him there behind his eyes. He's just in there in body, but not in there. I don't know. It's a crazy sport to be amongst, and I don't think the general public understand or will ever understand it, because they haven't had to put their yourself through that kind of trauma.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get back to you and AJ in a minute, but obviously your brother Sonny's been talking about the Martinez fight constantly, and it looks like that is nearly upon us, isn't it? And again, he wants revenge for the family. He's been saying this, that, and the other. I mean, what do you make of, obviously he's on a great path as well, Sonny, at the minute. That fight, what do you think about it?
I actually had a word with Sonny the other day, because I know there's this thing where he's pushing and other people are pushing this narrative of getting revenge for the family. And I had to have words with him, because I'll be real, and it's something that's been a dark thing in my head, and I want my own revenge. I've suffered pain for all this crap I've been through and how I felt about myself, of putting myself through what I did. So I want my own revenge. So I've said to him, I said, son, I hope to God and pray, and I want to be there, and I want to see you win. But I said, you need to stop with the getting family revenge, because you can't get revenge from me. I want you to beat him, and after you beat him, then I want to have it. Do you know what I mean? So I want to see him go and do it. I want to see him think, and I believe he can do it. Martinez looks like he's suffering complete mental health issues right now. He's all over the place. His last few fights, not making weights, probably being at the top. The pressure's got real. Being from Mexico, being out, apparently he's a bit of a party boy. It all takes its toll on the human body, and he ain't made the weights. He's pulled out of fights. He failed the drug test off the back of the fight I fought him. So his head's probably a bit fried himself. So I do believe my brother's got every attribute and everything to beat him. And I think it'll be a great night. I don't believe it will be all one-sided. I don't. Martinez is ruthless, and he will probably try and upset the apple cart and be dirty. He's a dirty fighter. My brother's a great boxer and can move his feet very well, and that is the style to beat Martinez. For the first 2 rounds, I outboxed him. If I go back and watch it, which I have done a few times now, I outboxed him, and he just got on top of me in the 3rd round when I was fucked, really. You know what I mean? Caught me with a liver shot, and my body shut down, and then when I was on the floor, he ended me. So it is, but I do believe Sonny's got every attribute to beat him, and I hope he does. And then when Martinez jumps up the 2 weight divisions, I'll be sitting there to put it on him and get my revenge and build my legacy.
Which leads us nicely on to the plan for you now, because again, you spoke very well about where you've been and what's gone on and everything else, but what's left then? Because I know you still want world titles, you've moved up obviously, so what's the plan in your head? So
with the WBC, WBO and IBF, I'm in the top 5 in the world already. That is, and then in the WBA I'm in the top 8. 2 of them are at super flyweight, 2 of them are at bantamweight. So we're sitting there knocking on doors. My goals and my visions and everything I'm thinking about is, if a shot comes up at super flyweight, yes, it's going to be a struggle. I will be able to make it once for that world title fight, and I will pick up a world title at super flyweight. But like I said before, I learned from my mistakes. I will leave that title behind. I will not let fights, money, things, false promises of getting unification fights dictate me dying at a weight again. And then I'll take that up and then do it at bantamweight. I do generally believe that I've got multiple weight world titles in me, and it's only a matter of time. Once all this craziness has been put to bed with the stagnation of my career and getting fights, I'm in the position where once my fights do get set and the ball starts rolling and the politics go away, I will be on fire. And I've developed so much more in the gym. I'm 29 now. I've come into I'm coming into the peak of my career. Yep. I'm 10 times the fighter I was when I was 25, when I was world champion. And the experience is there, everything's there, my mindset's there, my mental health's back on track. I'm ready to go. So when I do go, it will happen.
Fantastic. But of course, we get to the crux of this weekend now. Now, you've spoken about Josh, your old mate. Yeah. You used to watch films with him, you room with him. It was the Little and Large show.
Made
Twins,
in Chelsea with him.
Made in Chelsea. Yeah, now you're talking.
What a revelation that is.
But, and you've also mentioned, again, you touched on it earlier, that again, I know you're backing your mate. You're desperate for your mate to win. You're desperate for him to bring the belts back to Britain, and it's brilliant for all the boxers in the UK. We know that. But you fear for him, don't you? Because you've just said that you're not sure about his eyes, you're not sure about his body language. So give us your your final kind of roundup on this fight?
Yeah, I do. I do fear for him. I'm open. I'm honest. It's my opinion. I don't think it would ever affect the relationship me and him have. He's a very good friend of mine, and I want him to win, like you said. And I'll be praying for him that night and hoping he wins. But I just can't see it. I really can't. Honestly, hand on heart, I just can't see it. I hope he proves me wrong. I just believe with everything that's gone on, ups, downs, everything in between, the pressures of being this guy on top to being, because it happens, being hero to zero, everyone turning on him, the negativity starts flying in, and I just don't, changing of styles, being stuck in between styles, I don't think he's there behind his eyes, and I don't think he is generally confident, and a confident fighter is a dangerous fighter. Usyk's full of it. Usyk's coming off the back of that win. He knows what it's like to be up at heavyweight now for a good few fights. Usyk's the world champion. He's got his whole nation behind him, and I do believe that Usyk will win. And like everyone's saying, like Eddie Hearn saying, Anthony Joshua needs to go out there and stick it on him. Let's be real. In boxing, at elite level, if you go out there all guns blazing, sticking it on someone, you're getting knocked out yourself. So if he does that, I don't think he will. I think AJ and his team's a lot smarter than that bizarre comment. I think he will try and box early doors, and maybe when Usyk slows down, then kind of stick it on him towards the end. But I believe maybe AJ could get stopped this time.
Right. You mentioned the team there, and both of you have been in a situation where you've changed teams. So again, that's been a talking point as well. You know Rob McCracken well as well. I mean, again, it's hard for anyone outside to assess if it's a good move or not. But what's your kind of feeling about that change?
Well, obviously, Angel Fernandez has stayed on board, hasn't it? And I think, for me, AJ made it pretty clear he wanted to bring someone in, and I think Rob, by all accounts, a fantastic coach. But he's also, I certainly can't say ego, because it's unbelievable what he's done as a coach. He's entitled to have an ego, but I don't believe he has. But I think he's probably thought, no, I won't be a number two to someone. Do you know what I'm saying? I think AJ's got a huge amount of respect for Rob McCracken, but I think when any fighter's feeling like that, about change, bringing people in, I think it's the right time to move. I do. I think Robert Garcia, there's no doubt, he's a fantastic coach, but it's all right saying about implying, bringing the dog back in, AJ doing this and that, but for me, I don't know if I'm not giving a fight prediction, but when you've got a unique style like Usyk, you can't just, that pressure's got to be so educated. It's like Charles said, it's not just a matter of throwing it on someone, throwing it on someone, but the answer to the question going around the house a little bit there is Garcia, there's no denying, he's one of the top coaches in world boxing. So on paper, it's a very good move. If there's someone who AJ has to pick, he's one of the stellar names who he should go with. It's just going to be interesting to see how Robert Garcia and Angel have worked together and how much has that actually changed.
Sometimes too many cooks can spoil the broth. We've all heard that before. Yeah. And I don't believe that they've had enough time together.
I actually believe they should have more time.
And the magnitude of fight. Usyk.
He can't have a tick over though, can he?
No.
Usyk's like a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
Like, who's working him out?
Yeah.
To work him out.
You see his little reflexes, by the way, catching the coins and all that. He's crazy, man.
To work someone out in such a short space of time, while trying to adapt and change your own style,
it's an horrendous job. And listen, that's probably sending. He's human.
It's probably frying
He's probably frying his head. Where he's thinking he's trying to adapt as well, and
he's not flowing. Is he? He won't be flowing.
Yeah.
He'll be trying to force things that he's not used to doing, which will then cause bad habits, and it will make him double guess himself and make him unconfident. So when you double guess yourself, and you can't double guess yourself in the boxing ring. You either go for it or you don't.
It's the worst type of opponent to go into with a new coach. There's no denying that.
Definitely. Well, but I hope he does it. Fingers crossed for him.
Yeah.
Charlie, thank you very much. And listen, we look forward to seeing you back in doing the business.
Thank you for having me on, as always.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for your time.